Remember when I said invest in yourself? Well, I invested in myself. Here's what I did. At the end of February, hold on, this camera's weird. There you go. At the end of February, I'm taking a 40-hour course, a 40-hour class, 1 week, 8 hours a day, to improve my knowledge, to improve hopefully my income, because I can use it maybe at work or outside of work, definitely outside of work. And there's always something to learn, no matter what you do in life. There's always something to learn. You're never too old to not learn. So you're probably thinking, well, what are you doing? What are you taking off a week of work for to go do? Well, you might have seen it. It's a it's a backflow. You might have had these where you're gonna have these on your irrigation for your house. You'll see these in restaurants. You'll see them in fire systems for commercial buildings, schools, different sizes, different configurations, maybe different brands. This one is a Watts, but it looks like this. Kind of a weird looking setup, right? So your main water comes up here, goes that way. This is your backwards here. This is your first check valve. Your second check valve is here, and your relief is right there. So when water comes this way through the water system, whether it's hospital, fire station, whatever it is, even your irrigation to your house, and you don't want that water contaminated. So when it goes out this way, and it does get contaminated, and it gets sucked back into the system, the main water system, it'll discharge right here. So it does not go back into your potable water. So you could take this top off, and there's a little spring thing, little spring action plunger in here and over here. So these two actually stop the water from going back. And once a year, you have to get this thing tested by a person from the state, and they got to sign off on it saying you can use your water, you can use your irrigation, you can use your kitchen equipment for your restaurant. You can occupy the building for your fire system. If your fire system doesn't get tested for 3 or 4 years, technically a safety inspector or fire marshal or anybody like that, city official that has that ability, if they wanted to, they could shut your building down because your fire system is not up to code. So, they don't really do that with commercial properties a lot, like hospitals, schools, like government buildings. They give you a bunch of warnings, but they don't really shut you down per se. You know what I mean? But they can do the same thing to restaurants. If you're not in compliance, they can shut your restaurant down until you get that thing tested. So when I take this class, I'll have the certificate, and once I get that certificate, I can wait. I guess it depends on how long it takes the paperwork. I got to send the paperwork into the state with my hours, my years of experience, my licenses, whatever I have, and they'll get me approved, and I'll be able to sit for the state license. With that state license, there's companies out there that they only do backflow testing. That's what their company does all day, every day, and those people make a lot of money. If you have that license, a lot of people take the class, not a lot go through with it and get the state license. And that's where the money is. That's where you're just more marketable. You know what I mean? So it always pays off to invest in you, no matter if your company pays for it or not. It definitely can help you out in the long run. I'm doing this basically for me, not for the company that I work for. But for me, on the side or whatever, because there's a lot of people that have irrigations systems on their houses, and they got to get tested once a year, whether they know that or not. So, and that could be you can charge a lot for that. So here's the top. Take this little piece out. There's a little plunger in there. There's a little spring. This little part pops out, a little square, and I'll show you if you can see right there. There's a little white. It's kind of hard to see because of the angle, but there's a little white part. So it kind of springs back and forth. So one side is almost like a mushroom. You can kind of see this one right there. Now, if I can get it apart, which is hard because I don't have to take it apart. Let me see if I can get it apart. All right, I was able to get it out. So this piece, the piece is a little small. So you have the plunger part. It kind of goes like that. There's like a little spring right there. And this part right here, hold on. This little mushroom part actually sits like kind of like back in there. So there's not like a lot of pieces to it. It's just a matter of if it's not sealed correctly and one of these pieces fail, then see it kind of goes like that. So when the water goes through this way, it pushes it open like that. I don't know if you guys can see that. When water comes back this way, it closes it. It's kind of hard to do with one hand or two hands, but kind of get the idea. So water can only go one way. Sometimes these little gaskets go bad. So when you test this thing, when you test it, you put your gauges up to it. There's like a little gauge, gauge. You got like 3 or 4 hoses. You put the hoses on there and test it. You got to be at a certain number, like 3.5, 3.8. Testing each check valve basically. So when each check valve holds up to that number, you're good. And there's also a test that you can check the relief valve. So when it starts dripping, it's supposed to be at like a 7 or something, but so if it goes below that, then one of these check valves are bad. And you can either buy the kit and rebuild it and then retest it, or you can just kind of replace the whole thing and have it all brand new from the factory, which is kind of what I recommend. But yeah, so getting that certificate is first, taking the 8-hour course every day, 5 days, and that definitely will open up a lot of doors. So there's a lot of people that take the class. There's not a lot of people that have the license. That's the next step. So I'm excited to take this class. I think it'll be interesting. I took it once before, a long time ago, probably I want to say like 15 years ago. But that was for my last job. I just had to get it, take the class, and the city I worked for, as long as you had someone on staff that had the certification, the city would okay you to test it in the schools. So we did our own testing for the schools. The city didn't come in and do it for us. We just had to provide the city with the proper paperwork, basically saying this is what it passed at. It's basically like legal documents. So it's like a regular form you fill out and sign your name, sign what the numbers were, sign the date. If anything happened in that school or fire system or whatever, and they came back and said, all right, well, you had this thing tested, say 5 months ago, who was the last person to test it? And if it was me, legal actions can be taken, technically, if it was like, if they could prove that it was faulty when I tested it, and I didn't really test it, I just kind of wrote some numbers down and didn't even hook my gauges up. So there is some legal things to that could, could be potentially, bad, because it is fire systems. It is like potable drinking water, so it's not like it's just kind of like brushed under the rug. And there's a lot of people, a lot of different departments involved, and so it's a big deal. I mean, it's not something to take lightly, I guess. So you definitely want to make sure you're, you take the class and you pay attention, basically, and you get all the right things that you need to take. So I'm excited. So like I said, invest in yourself. No matter what it costs. Money is, you can't take money with you. So might as well give it to somebody else that knows more than you and help yourself out. You know what I mean? So that's all I got for today, and I'll see you guys on the next one.